So hi everyone, I'm Russ Neufeld. I'm our Chief Cloud Officer. I manage several teams on the engineering side, including at the Orchestration Center, but also the team that has developed the Analytics Connector. I know we've gone through a lot of slides already. I promise you I only have a couple here to just set some context, and then I will get to some live stuff. So just as a reminder where we are, so at this point a customer, let's say, has consolidated their workloads and put their files into Nasuni, and now they want to glean some higher level analytics or information about them. And so, you know, the major cloud providers, Amazon, Google, and Azure, have all, you know, in the last few years come out with just amazing arrays of services that can perform these higher level analytics. So as an example, AWS Kendra is a fully managed search engine and search index, really simple to feed a variety of different sources of data into this search engine, and you end up with a a full usable search engine. I'm going to show you that in a moment. Another one might be GDPR governance or any kind of like personally identifiable information scans that you might want to do. And Amazon Macie is a great example of that. Again, I'll show you that. And image recognition. We have a lot of customers that store a variety of different images on the Nasuni platform, and Amazon's Rekognition and Azure Cognitive Services are give you these tools to build these really rich image search engines on top of that. And I'll show you kind of the basics of that, and also where you can go with these. So my last slide, just briefly, this is a high-level architecture of what the Analytics Connector looks like and where it fits in. So on the left-hand side, we've got an edge appliance, and really in this case, it's going to be multiple edge appliances writing to Nasuni volumes, and those volumes are backed typically by S3 or by Azure Blob Storage accounts, and the file system that we write there, as folks have mentioned in this presentation, supports unlimited versions and snapshots and quick disaster recovery. Everything also is encrypted, which is part of one of the main Nasuni's main tenets. Because of that, the services on the right-hand side here, like any of these Amazon Web Services or Azure services, need to be connected or need additional help to read the Nasuni files. So the Analytics Connector gives you a way of essentially connecting those files by making a short-lived copy for these services to consume, and that's kind of what the this right-hand short-lived copy diagram shows you here. One of the things that's great about the Analytics Connector is, we allow you to mix and match source and destinations. So if you had your files backed by Azure Blob, but the services that you wanted to run against them are in Amazon, you can very easily do that, and I'll show you where you do that in a moment. But one of the main point I really want to emphasize on this slide, though, is that we're operating directly against the object store. We're operating directly against the file system, and that's really key to our architecture. And it's a real differentiator from traditional storage systems. When you separate those two, the edge appliance from the file system, and when you have your file system up in the cloud, you can throw the full power of the cloud, the full scalability of the cloud, resources available and technologies available to you, and really come up with some amazing products and services. And the Analytics Connector is actually one of two products that we introduced last year that build on this kind of technique. The other one being our Cloud Migrator, which is kind of the opposite. It's a way of putting data into UniFS by bypassing the edge appliance and writing directly to the file system. And we really think this technique has a lot of legs. You're going to see us innovate in this area a lot in the future. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting area. So let me let's say goodbye to PowerPoint for a little while, shall we? All right, just want to double check that folks can see my screen, and I hope the font is big enough for everybody here. Okay, so this is what the Analytics Connector looks like. This is it's a web UI. Now, everything I'm about to show you is also 100% scriptable. So I'm going to take you through the UI, obviously, because that demo is a lot better. But what our customers have done and what we'd expect is, folks would come through here a few times, get their bearings, and then script everything, add it to their automated workflows. So first up, I'm going to select the region that the Analytics Connector is going to run in. And we would recommend in general that you pick a region that's as close as possible to where your Nasuni volume is stored. So in this case, I've got a volume in Ohio that I'm going to export. Next up is we're going to need to put our encryption key into a place that's accessible to the Analytics Connector. Now, the Analytics Connector runs in the customer's environment. So what we're doing here is asking the customer to put their key in their cloud account. And this is being stored in AWS Parameter Store, which is a secure location. If I were doing that, I would fill out this form and upload this key. I've actually already done that in this case, so I'm just going to continue on. Next up is going to be our source of our Nasuni volume. So that's either AWS or Azure. So just flip back here for a moment. We're talking about like where is our volume, and that's this left-hand side here. So I'll choose Amazon in this case. And then again, our destination. So here's where we can see that we can very easily go between clouds. And if we wanted to, we could, send all of our data over to Azure. That's again, this right-hand side of this diagram. In this case, I'm going to send it to AWS. And then we are ready to launch. Okay. So one more form here. Let me increase the font size for you all. So let's call this demo 1. All right, so the next step is, again, to just fill out one more form. And I'll just emphasize again that this is 100% scriptable. And at some point, everyone we've talked to just kind of goes ahead and scripts this up. So I'm going to throw in my license key, which I'm going to get from my account at nasuni.com. Oops. And then I need the source bucket name. So for that, I'm going to go over to our NMC. This is our Nasuni Management Console, which was mentioned before. This is the place, again, where you would manage volumes or edge appliances. In this case, I'm looking at this volume, CS Vol1, and I can get the bucket or storage account that backs this bucket. Again, all of this is available through the NMC API. So if someone were developing this and putting it in a workflow, they would get that through an API. We have options here for best practices on providing access to buckets with like read-only permissions. I'm going to skip that now just for sake of brevity. If you were uploading your key, it would go into AWS Parameter Store, and we would need a reference to that. We have a snapshot to export. So we've talked a lot today about snapshots and continuous versioning. Again, another thing available through an API is kind of this opaque identifier that identifies each snapshot that's available in the cloud. I've picked our current version, but you can very easily go back in time and do an export of any version in the past. So let me put that in here.
So Enrico, this is where you would pick a point in time in the file system and then export the entire file system structure to an open, file system accessible export. That's how you get out of Nasuni if that's what you want to do, or you can run more analytics on it.
Let me skip this previous snapshot handler for a moment. There's a variety of options here for filtering your export. You can start at subdirectories and filter based on file paths and patterns. You can filter based on size. I'm going to put in a destination bucket. So I've created this bucket here, Russ Demo 1, which I will show you is currently empty. And again, I could provide credentials that have write-only access to that bucket. I'm just going to skip that for now. And let's kick this off. Okay, so the Analytics Connector is built on AWS technologies. It's packaged up as a CloudFormation stack. At the moment, it runs on AWS, and we are currently in development of an Azure version of this. It's essentially a SaaS service. There's no downloads, there's no installs. You're always running, you always have access to and running the latest version. And what's happening right now is all of the resources that needed to be created and set up are being done automatically. And so just quick back to PowerPoint for a second. So the underlying technology is, again, packaged with CloudFormation. I'm using AWS Lambda. That's their serverless execution environment. We use some SQS under the covers and some CloudWatch, both for the dashboards and for aggregating logs and metrics. And this is all automatically being provisioned as we talk. So this takes a moment, and while this is going on, I just want to briefly show you what our, just briefly talk to you about cost. So we have a cost estimation tool on the NAC website. In my case right now, I am exporting a terabyte of data. And I'm going, let me just say that, I am in Ohio, and I'm staying within Ohio. And let's just say for the sake of argument that I kept this data for 7 days afterwards. So you can see over here, the cost estimation, $17.70, pretty cheap to run this thing. Now, obviously, this does not cover the cost of the analytics that you're going to do after this. But just getting your data out is not very expensive, especially if you're kind of staying within region and staying within cloud providers. All right, let's see how we're doing over here. Okay, so create complete. We have finished up creating our Analytics Connector stack, and it also has started running automatically. And at this point, we are going to look at our CloudWatch dashboard. Get that to scale better. Which is going to give us, let me turn on this.
Russ, can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
So this is very cool. I mean, I understand all the internals, but why don't you provide something that is easy to consume for an executive? If I want to classify all the documents in my company or something like that, I mean, just simple, straightforward applications, like give me a catalog of 10 operations that can do on all my data, for example, because this is all custom code, okay? So do you have a repositories like, all my customers are doing this, so you can just copy the same script, the same software, and, replicate all these operations or anything else? I mean, if there is somebody doing, as I said, data classification, so do I have to start all over again to do data classification? I mean, every single customer has to do it because it's expensive, while having, an app style kind of approach will be way simpler, even if this is very powerful.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the short answer is what we're trying to do here is kind of connect you to the variety of services that you might want to run, and it's definitely what I'm showing you is a little bit technical, but once you've kind of gone through that initial setup, and that's again, once you've kind of scripted it and added it to your workflow, the options that are available at that point are powerful and perhaps getting simpler over time. One of the things that I wanted to show probably a little bit later in this demo, but I can kind of jump to it now, is there are solutions coming out there from both Amazon and from Microsoft that tie a lot of these services together into workflows that then do these analytics for you. So, and the key to this is that what they start with is an S3 bucket or an Azure storage container. So I hope you guys can see this, but this is an example of a document processing pipeline. Pretty complicated, right? But this is an open source package that has been put out by the AWS labs. At its heart, it's running textract, so gleaning information from text-based documents and then running it through Comprehend to get that sentiment analysis. And the key for us right now is that the starting point for this is an S3 bucket. And so what people can do is set this up and then have a workflow which feeds the where the Analytics Connector becomes a starting point for this, and then have these very powerful analytics like text analysis and
but you said people can do actually just looking at.
Oh, Enrico,
he's breaking.
You're
up.
fading off.
He's breaking up.
Enrico, while you're
I can't probably.
Oh, go ahead. Say it again. So Enrico, I'll jump in and just say, I think that, so this is actually Russ Neufeld's idea, this analytics connector. And I think the way in which he pitched it to me a couple of years ago when he came back from reInvent is the best one. There's this whole world at AWS of increasingly advanced services that are not available to us because we are in a proprietary UniFS format, which is highly optimized for what we do, but incompatible with the growing AWS and Azure ecosystems. This gives you a target. This gives you a source that is 100% compatible with all of the AWS services for analyzing data. That's the objective. That's the value to the customer. The fact that because it is a open bucket with an open file system format, it is all of a sudden available. Your data is available to all the services.
I don't understand your point of view, but
the piece I would add on, sorry, Enrique, the piece I would add on is that as our customers start to use this technology, they're building up their own processes and perhaps their own scripts and their own tools. And in a lot of cases, in certain industries, they may be sharing that best practice with others that are using Nasuni as well. So we fully expect that this will be something that our user community in general starts to adopt, starts to utilize, and maybe starts to share some best practices around to get to the very simple, easy approach that you were talking about. I just want a report on my desktop every morning that shows me these 10 things. And that will be, something that somebody could, automate, build, deliver, and then, it's hitting the need that the user has.
Yep. All right. So I'll just finish up here. I know we're pretty much out of time here, but one of the things I want to point out is we're going to hit about 6 or so minutes to export a terabyte of data. So that is about 10 terabytes of data 10 terabytes of throughput per hour. So we have a really incredible parallelism that we have developed here, and file systems are hierarchical, and basically the way we do this is by throwing a Lambda function at the root of the directory, or at least the starting point, and then for every item that we find in that directory, we throw another Lambda function at that. So if it's a file, we start just copying bytes. And if it's a directory, we walk that directory and throw Lambda functions at everything we find underneath that. And you may have seen, I kind of quickly went through when I set this up, there was an upper limit of 900 Lambdas that I had set. So at any given point in this export, there are 900 simultaneous individual exports going on, which is how we achieve such high parallelism and throughput. And just to kind of seal this off at the end here, I'll go back to my S3 bucket and we'll take a look in here. I'll show you that there's data in here, I picked up. Let's go through to our. This is our web UI. Oh, and I will log in again. So this is what our Nasuni's web UI looks like. And if I were to, let's pick a photo down in here. Something that's kind of good. All right, so here we go. I think that was this one. Oh, sorry. Oh, come on. All right, well. Well, it's a demo. So if I were to run some recognition on this one, I think I have that. Here we go. Is it this guy? So here I'm just going to run AWS Rekognition on this, and you can see that it's picked out things like there's a bicycle, transportation, et cetera. And so, this is obviously a low-level primitive that you might build a search engine on top of. But you can kind of see that, like, I've got my my files and my images in Nasuni, and here's how I could start to build out an image search engine. And we do have customers that have done this, using these technologies. So let me ask. I know we're at 4 o'clock. I was going to quickly show you an example with Macie and Kendra, but tell me if I should be cutting this short at this point, or if there are other questions.
I think it's worth the 5 minutes, Stephen, if you can give us 5 minutes to see the other 2 demos, because it shows you the solution.
All right, well, I'll just kind of roll on here, and you can interrupt. So just real quick, I've done some exports also so what I did was I took our Nasuni internal file servers. We eat our own dog food here, and exported our internal marketing directories, and fed that into Kendra. So Kendra, again, natural language search engine. And in here, I put these into an S3 bucket called demo day export, and then had Kendra index those. And doing this was probably about 15 minutes of me clicking around, and then a couple of hours just waiting for things to process. And one of the things I wanted to mention here is there was an initial load that took hours, but then one of the things that I glossed over in that analytics connector form that I was filling out was the notion of like that current snapshot or a snapshot and then a previous snapshot. And what we can do with that is to say, just export the changes that have happened between 2 snapshots. So if I wanted to keep a search index up to date, I could script up through automation and have the analytics connector run on a periodic basis, and then also have Kendra periodically scan this S3 bucket and then produce the search engine. And so Kendra, out of the box, has its own search UI. You can customize this or build your own, or build it on top of APIs. But just to show you that this is real, I'll do a. This is just what happened to be in our internal servers at Nasuni. So just a real easy way of getting search on top of your files in Nasuni. And then finally, Macie. So just again, like perhaps your data governance, a CISO or whatever, and need to look for sensitive data. So again, another thing I set up for us here is a scan of a Nasuni volume, which I intentionally knew had bad data in it. So our S3 bucket in this case is called this sample volume with bad things. And I ran the Macie scan on that. And it pops out lots of different stuff that it's found. Let's take a look at that. So here's some personal information that it's found. Let's see what's here. All right, so it's got some names. That's not too exciting. I think this other one was personal. Okay, here we go. Some addresses, some births, and then social security numbers. And so in this case, what we can do is go back to either this Nasuni volume or the S3 volume and take a look at that. I'll just do that real quick. So this was sample volume with bad things, source code, I believe it was in here. And then we will download this. And I will show you. Let's take a look at that file. And so here's, a bunch of stuff, but you can see within here are some social security numbers. So, again, if I'm interested in knowing what sensitive data someone might have put into my file sets and might need to take some actions based on that, Macie is a great way of looking at that. And then, the Analytics Connector in conjunction with that, with some automation, is a great way of setting that workflow up.